Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Kozlowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Do you wonder why dysregulation after PTSD is so much worse when we're parenting? If you're curious about this topic, please hit subscribe below so that you can be updated because we're going to be talking about dysregulation, co-regulation, self-regulation, and all things PTSD recovery and parenting on this channel. So post-traumatic parents very often have a complicated relationship with dysregulation. Our PTSD and our CPTSD tell us that dysregulation is very dangerous, right? Our trauma app in our brain does not like the sensation we get when we're dysregulated. It doesn't like our heart pounding. It doesn't like our throat feeling tight. It doesn't like our stomach clenching. It doesn't like our fingers and toes feeling cold. The trauma app is always on the look for trauma. It's always on the look for the next dangerous situation. It functions on the principle of, is it happening again? Oh no, it's happening again. I bet it's happening again. It's about to happen again. The trauma app is constantly on the lookout and on the scan for danger. Now, here's the problem. When we're parents, our brains suddenly become hypervigilant about danger too. It's a natural process. It happens as soon as we bring that little human into the world. A mother's brain certainly is neurobiologically primed to do this, and a father's brain as well, primed to notice and scan for every possible danger because it's all about keeping the little human alive. It's not only humans that do this. Pretty much any animal that cares for its young becomes very hypervigilant in those early months of the child's life while the child is still in danger. Of course, if you're a duckling, within 6 months, you're already able to fend for yourself. Human babies are still pretty helpless even at age 2. The whole reason we have an attachment system, according to John Bowlby, is because human babies are so helpless. The attachment system is a survival mechanism that keeps us attached to our caregivers and keeps us alive. So our caregivers also have that attachment system, and that attachment system wakes up and goes into overdrive when the baby is born, looking for any possible danger and even dangers we never thought of until the baby is born. Very common to see first-time new parents childproofing everything, right? Because, oh my gosh, what if? Now, when we have PTSD, those sensations seem really, really, really familiar to us. Like, oh no, it's happening again. I'm traumatized again. I'm in this hypervigilant state. The world is dangerous. And then we try to sort of pinpoint the danger. Like, where's the bear? What's happening? What's dangerous here? What's about to attack me? The truth is, nothing is actually dangerous, right? It's just that our brain is primed to be hypervigilant for danger because there's a baby. And that sense of hypervigilance for danger is also what the trauma app does. So those two things intersect and put us on a very, very, very high alert. I remember once seeing a cartoon that said, it showed a working mother holding a baby in one hand and a briefcase in the other hand, and her eyes were these two whirlpools of exhaustion. And the doctor was saying, "We can't help you, Mrs. Jones. We've never seen a working mother with insomnia before." And I remember looking at that cartoon and thinking, like, really? Because I have met hundreds of working mothers with insomnia. Every post-traumatic parent, whether they're working or not, tells me of insomnia because trauma keeps us awake, PTSD keeps us awake, CPTSD keeps us awake, rumination and hypervigilance keep us awake, babies keep us awake. So between the two, it's this wonderful matchup of no sleep whatsoever. And yeah, no sleep whatsoever is pretty accurate. If you've ever been a post-traumatic parent with a newborn, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that sense of the trauma app reawakening because the maternal protection system or the paternal protection system is awakening, and those two working together is so common. It is so normal for a post-traumatic parent to be really triggered simply by becoming a parent. Matrescence, of course, is a trauma in and of itself. As much as it's wonderful and lovely to become a mother, to give birth to oneself as a mother as we give birth to our child, matrescence is wonderful and lovely. It also feels an awful lot like trauma to people who have experienced trauma. And if someone hasn't experienced trauma, matrescence still feels like a trauma because suddenly you're responsible for keeping another human alive. And that's a pretty tall order. That is not easy. So when we're keeping another human alive, but we already know that the world is such a dangerous place and our trauma app is warning us and warning us and warning us, the two things intersecting can be really hard. So stop. Let's just remember that those signals are the trauma app going into overdrive and simply telling the trauma app, okay, I'm removing some of these permissions right now. I get that I need to keep this baby alive. And I get that every little sound could be dangerous. This is a bit much. So what I am going to do is I'm going to remember that I've already child-proofed the house. I have done my due diligence about finding the best crib and the safest product. And I have followed all the requirements that I've heard and I've learned from my pediatrician. The baby is as safe as I can make the baby. It will be okay, right? And then we learn to do whatever we've done in the past to self-regulate. And here's where that becomes a little tricky, because if in the past we self-regulated ourselves out of our PTSD with things that aren't compatible with parenting, like, I don't know, wine, binge watching something for hours on end, shopping sprees, forcing ourselves not to think about it because of like over exercising for hours. It's not really compatible with a newborn baby in the house. It's not compatible with toddlers in the house. So we need to learn other ways to self-regulate. The good news is we can self-regulate. It's not as much fun as a couple of glasses of wine, but we can learn to use deep breathing. I like to use ABCD breathing. So breathe in for 4, A, B, C, D. Hold your breath for 4, E, F, G, H, and then blow out as far in the alphabet as you can get. The nice thing is that we can do this with our kids, and then we're teaching them a skill, we're modeling something for them, and we're also self-regulating in the process. Dancing with the baby, putting on some music and dancing around can both soothe the baby and soothe our own nervous system as well. There are ways to remain present and also self-regulate. Yeah, they're not as much fun. They're a little harder, but they do work. Another one that works is progressive muscle relaxation, raw spaghetti body, cooked spaghetti body, sort of like tightening every muscle in your body, loosening every muscle in your body. Again, doing that while holding the baby can actually be kind of fun for the baby. It feels a little bit like a ride. So those are skills and ways that we can lower our adrenal system. We can lower that overreactivity and that hypervigilance. We can lower our heart rate. We can slow our breathing. And slowly but surely, we come to a place of self-regulation where we're calmer. And the best thing about that is not only are we not harming our baby, our toddler, our children when they see us become overstimulated and then self-regulate, we're teaching them and modeling to them such an important and useful skill. Big emotions happen. They even happen to kids who were not traumatized. Unlike us, we're giving our children that healthy normative childhood that our inner child wishes we had. And our children, but even our children, as wonderful a childhood as we're providing them, you're going to have big emotions sometimes. Their best friend is going to say, I'm not your friend anymore. A 2-year-old is going to fall on the playground and start crying. A 4-year-old is going to be really frustrated when they can't quite write their name the way they want to, or they don't want bedtime, or they don't want to brush their teeth, right? These are all the normal things in childhood that create big emotions. But if they see us getting overstimulated and then self-regulating, getting overstimulated and then self-regulating, they learn like, oh, I can do that too. The emotions are not actually the problem, right? The problem is that I find them uncomfortable, but I can always make my body more comfortable. When I make my body more comfortable, my brain becomes smarter. I can think more clearly. Look, I see mom doing it all the time, so I can do it too. So not only will witnessing our hyperarousal and then our calming not damage our children, it will model to our children the most wonderful skill of all, the skill of how to be an effective human, how to be a self-regulated human. That's a skill that we can't really just lecture at them. We can't just expect them to develop accidentally. That's a skill that we want them to develop, and they're going to develop it by watching us. So if you're a post-traumatic parent and you have those hyper-vigilant, hyper-aroused states and you're worried that they're going to harm your child, know that they're not going to harm your child. And by self-regulating in front of your child, you are teaching your child how to self-regulate. You're also modeling to your child that it's okay to have big emotions and then self-regulate. And eventually that self-regulation in the presence of your child becomes co-regulation with you and your child together. And that is the most incredible experience, because then our inner child truly heals, because our inner child sees that, unlike perhaps us in our childhood, where we were left alone with our big emotions, and our big emotions felt like the end of the world and they felt like something to be avoided at all costs. Actually, when you remain present with big emotions, you can soothe them. And sometimes our inner child is experiencing that form of parenting from us, even though it's our inner child, not our actual child. And in this way, in parenting, we are parented. If you like this content, please consider subscribing below. Also, find the post-traumatic parenting community on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. If you want to hear more in-depth topics around post-traumatic parenting, check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.